Good morning. Welcome to the No Way Jose podcast. This is the Morning Dump. I am your host, Jose Galison. This is the kitty of the day, Noodle, beautiful little chocolate girl. She's a sweetheart. I love her. She really is just a sweet girl. She's one of the nice ones from the litter. I mean, they're all nice, but there's every now and then you have one or two that's just really sweet, and she's a real sweetie pie. But yeah, I hope you guys, and if you guys want to see more of my hot takes or see some of my hot takes Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern on the Morning Dump, also Tuesday on our morning show at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, or if you just want to see more of these sweet darling kitties every day, hit subscribe. I'll see you guys in the show.
Beautiful thing right now.
Rise and shine. It's a beautiful day.
I am alright.
About a third of the building has been blown away.
This is the bridge to the white lights.
Our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts.
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad.
It's crazy evil.
What's up? What's up? Happy Halloween. Totally forgot it was Halloween until one of you guys mentioned it. And so I guess I'm a bug. That's what I am today. I just happen to find this sitting around when my kiddos left it. So whatever, I'm a bug. It's Halloween themed. We have plenty to go through today. I have Comrade Epstein as the first segment. There was a new piece, I believe, some from Drop Site. We'll go through it together as always. We're going through it together in the show. That's the purpose of the show. It's an info dump, so I'm kind of giving you my cursory thoughts beforehand. Who knows? I could have been wrong. We're just, but Comrade Epstein, kind of the idea here, I think, is analyzing some of the odd ties between Epstein and the Russian government. Then the Fed cover-up filing scam. What that story is, we'll be digging deep into. Essentially how now multiple federal agencies have adopted informational systems that allow them to create separate systems for things they want covered up. So essentially a filing system for cover-ups. And then also top secret MKULTRA docs. In that one, we had just recently in the last, I think, day or two, there was new testimony released, so we will go through that. I will admit today is probably a little bit more of an academic type episode in the sense that more just digging through articles because we're going through this stuff. Like we're reading all the ins and outs about this Fed stuff. We're going to read the article about Epstein and particularly the MKUltra stuff. We're going to be trudging through some documents and stuff. So just letting you guys know what you're getting into. But as always, we do put timestamps on this show. I try to do it, shortly after the show. Within, sometimes I have stuff to do, but within usually at least a few hours, typically right after I put timestamps on. So you can jump back and forth wherever you want. But we will start, as always, on the show with some sort of like icebreaker clips or stories, a little bit more like Gen Pop type stuff, a little bit more, I don't know, the typical conversation type stuff going on, dip our toes into that, or something fun or funny. And then we'll get into the foreign policy, and then we'll get to those main topics we told you about. But yeah, let's get through the intro clips, intro stuff for today. I found this, came across this one kind of last minute, and I thought it was pretty dang funny, and it tied into kind of where I want to take the morning, the intro stories or the icebreaker segment anyways, kind of because I do try to start off fun and go a little bit more serious. So this one kind of perfectly segues into what I wanted to go, as opposed to, I was going to subject you guys to like a long 4-minute video on liminal spaces, but I was like, that's a little spooky. Actually, maybe we will. I'm debating it back and forth now because it is Halloween, so it would be thematic. But it seemed a little too serious just for the jump on the show here. But to fit with where I want to go, and to be kind of funny. This is Stephen Miller's wife. Just check out this meltdown. This is with her and Cenk Uygur on Piers Morgan. I just thought this was particularly funny, and I think you may as well.
Totally lying. That's very normal for a Miller to be completely and utterly lying.
Quite frankly, I'm really sick and tired of this racist, bigoted rhetoric that comes from people like you against my husband, against my family, and my children. I am raising Jewish children in this country.
Who brought your
in which
children into this? What a weirdo.
Piers, I'm going to be done with this if you're going to allow racist and bigoted attacks against one of your commentators just for the sake that he will not
hang on.
speaking.
Casey, to be clear, he inserted
a line that says the Miller's lie. Is that not coded language for therefore we are Jewish?
The Miller's lies. So she gets from that it's because we're Jewish. I actually didn't even really realize she was Jewish till now. Although, like, is she? I don't. I mean, I guess maybe it's the bigot in me. Actually, funny. I look at her and I just see brown. I go, "What? A Jew?" Whatever. I don't know. I wouldn't have guessed that. Stephen Miller, I would have guessed that at first glance. Her husband, her, not so much. And I think it's supposed to be the other way around. I think it's supposed to be the wife or the woman that's the Jew. So you don't get you can't marry a guy and become Jewish. That's not how that works. I don't think. All right, let's keep going.
Come on, Pierce. Where are you?
What?
Where are you standing?
God, you're so
Casey,
pathetic.
if I can speak.
Everything's your shield.
If I can speak,
anti-Semite. Fire him, cancel him, America. Oh my God, Israel's feelings have been hurt. Why don't you work for this country?
Right, can we try and get
this country?
Yeah, you are a guest on my show, and I appreciate you coming on the show, and I like you coming on the show.
And I'm saying the two other guests on your show are welcome to participate in these anti-Semitic attacks that is so permeating on CNN and MSNBC.
This is so ridiculous. I'm sorry. I have to jump in here. Somebody criticizing you personally is not an anti-Semitic attack. If somebody says that you are lying, that is not an attack on Jews. That is an attack on you. And just stop hiding behind identity. This is all the snowflake behavior that the right is supposedly criticizing the left for, that you're simply repeating here. Yes, Stephen Miller is a destructive force in American society. That is not an attack on Jews. That is no reference to his own identity. This is an attack on him individually, and just deal with the merits of this.
Just wild and pretty pathetic seeing it become this way on the right. But yeah, this is her. It's weird. I never would have been like, oh, totally a Jew. I don't know. She does look a little kind of frumpy, which kind of gives a little bit more of a J vibe in this photo, but she typically looks a little prettier, more upbeat. This is not a great photo of her. So this one, I guess, does put a little bit of a J connotation on it, but typically she kind of looks like I say to the few times I've seen her, I always think like kind of, semi-attractive Latina-ish is what I'd kind of like, okay. Never would have guessed J, but whatever. I guess any attack on her must immediately be attack on the Jays. Well, feeding into that trope, let's see what our buddy Josh Hammer has to say.
I don't think that it's beneficial to the movement to have the radicals gaining prominence and power and mainstreaming them. I don't think it will help us. I think if anything, the left is actually a cautionary tale along those lines because their radicals were given the reins. They did amass quite a bit of cultural and institutional power, but I think they pushed it too far. And now we're seeing some backlash from that. We're seeing a lot of response where people are, gravitating more towards reason, sanity, truth. They are rejecting the left's radical agenda because it went so insane. It went so far. And that's because the radicals were handed the reins. And so I don't see it as being politically expedient. I don't think that it's benefit.
All right, well, actually, Josh Hammer didn't comment on that. My bad, but whatever. He got to sit there, and we got to look at his ghoulish face. Now let's see Dave handling Seth Dillon after Seth Dillon having this conversation, I don't know, in a very safe space, I guess you could say, with Josh Hammer. Now here's him getting the tiniest bit of pushback on this stupid fucking idea. Dave did a pretty damn good job here. This was cathartic to watch. I enjoyed this. But yeah. It wasn't like a knockdown. I will say, if for those interested in watching this Dave Smith versus Seth Dillon, I believe it's Seth, right? Something Dillon. It was not like a knockdown, drag out, but yeah, boy, did he not look good. So yeah, it was not like a blood sports type thing. But yeah, it was just kind of Seth kvetching, though. We can't just be letting the negative, destructive voices into the movement. They could lead our people astray. And Dave was like, no, that's fucking gay, and it doesn't matter what you think anyways, because this is what's fucking happening, so suck a fat fucking cock, is basically what he said. But let's watch this. I don't know, it is nice to watch. Let's watch this clip together.
Yeah, well, you also like Nick Fuentes and don't have anything to say about his bad ideas. So it's just weird to get like a moral superiority coming.
I got a lot to say about his bad ideas. What are you talking about, man? Look, I believe what I believe. Obviously, if anyone ever listened to me, do I say the same stuff he does? No, we have different views.
Well, why do you like him? Why do you like him? Why do you defend Nick Fuentes? Why do you like him if you hate his ideas so much?
I don't know. I mean, like, I hate a lot of Pierce's ideas, and I like him. Pierce was for gun control. He's a dirty Brit coming over to my country trying to round up the guns. I'd still love to grab a beer with him.
Yeah, but he's never called for the execution of atheists, heretics, and perfidious Jews. He doesn't say that they should, burn in ovens and glorify Hitler. I mean, he hasn't gone that far, has he? I don't think Pierce has said anything like that. I don't know why you'd want to be friends with somebody who has those kinds of views.
I have not gone that far, no.
Not that far, not yet. Well, look, I mean,
no, I have one more question for you.
What do you? I want to know what Dave thinks about Tucker essentially calling Charlie Kirk a heretic by saying that anybody who
just look at this faggoty behavior though. There's just such a gay kvetching, like, oh no, why do you like this person? Why do you like them? Why do you like? Oh, why? It's just gay. It's just really, really gay, and I don't know how any man can't really sit here and not be like, this is just faggoty behavior. But whatever. Let's watch more of it.
Who's a Christian Zionist is a heretic. I mean, that was Charlie Kirk, was it not?
Okay, but I mean, I think obviously he's speaking about evangelical Christians in general and saying that this violates the Bible, like to make it about.
Yeah,
Charlie Kirk
that's a circle that really Charlie Kirk fits inside. It applies to him.
Okay, but he's okay.
Did you say bad things about our Lord and Savior Charlie Kirk?
He's criticizing a view that Charlie Kirk had. Yeah, I disagreed with Charlie on that too. So what's your point?
He said he hates those people more than he said he hates those people more than anybody else and called them heretics. And yet he spoke at Charlie Kirk's memorial so glowingly. How do you reconcile those two things?
Yeah, he obviously didn't hate Charlie Kirk. There you go. Come on. This is like ridiculous. Yes, he's making a point that he thinks that actually the Christians who put Israel above their own government and believe that like only Jesus can come back.
It's also such a stupid point. The point is Charlie Kirk was a Christian Zionist, and Tucker Carlson said some stuff about that I guess applies to Christian Zionists and being like, this is gross. And there's been lots of discussion about where he was in that, and it seems like even on a religious level he may have been converting, so he was clearly grappling with this issue. So I don't think it's necessarily even really fair, and it's actually kind of gross to use it in this sense, especially when you have the context knowing that this is at least up in the air. So the idea that you'd even be like one or the other, I feel ridiculous as these ears bounce around if I move, but sorry, that's distracting. Let's keep going.
The Jews control the area. That is goofy, and I agree.
Yeah, well, if you say you hate people that have Charlie's views, then you're saying you hate Charlie.
Yeah, okay.
I don't.
Good. If that's the argument you want to go with, okay. I don't know.
All right, well, that was fun. Now, I did want to kind of jump on. I did see more conversation, particularly against Dave. I think I'm part of the problem. Talked about the whole. He had Scott on, and I haven't finished it yet, but he addressed the whole neutralized thing, and I figured maybe there was going to be some angle, something I was missing, or something. But no, it really does seem like everyone is running with that. And once again, so I did post on Twitter this morning. I said, well, I think Hammer is a scummy foreign spy, and wouldn't be the least bit surprised if it was a literal hit being called, and completely get why some people are more sensitive right now. The neutralized dog pile strikes me as a misstep that paints those associated as bad faith and feminine. And I stand by that. I still think that's the case. I feel like it's weird. Now, my point being here is, like, as I said, I'm open to the idea that is, like, what he means. But we don't know that. And you got to think you're presenting information to the rest of the world. So of what use is it to put yourself out there and go, to make this heavy... I don't know, whatever this like being upset about the neutralized, what is the gripe? That he should be more sensitive about his language? Or are you trying to say he's calling a hit or something? Like, I mean, either way, I'm like, I get the connotation in being like, what the fuck? But at the same time, like, piling on it and not, it just does kind of strike a bit as like doing what he, and you also got to keep in mind, who the fuck is your nemesis here? This is Josh Hammer. He is literally the archetypical Jew. like the bad faith twist your words, and you're going to come at him on very shaky ground. Like, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if, like, the sort of language, this harsh language he used was intentional so that he could get exactly this. I mean, I'm also very much open to the idea it literally was a call out to his handlers, but I'm also open to the idea he's literally doing it so that people will jump on it and go, oh, and then he can go, what are you talking about? This is a word that has many different definitions. You're clearly not behaving in good faith. Because, to be fair, he's kind of got a point. Because neutralize, while it is harsh language and the wording does make me feel like it is kind of like a mob hit thing, technically these are words that can be interpreted in multiple different ways. So therefore it is on the reader to interpret these things. Yes, you can say it's an editorial thing and it's sloppy that they chose to do this or do that, but they did. And at the end of the day, you, the person reading, are the one interpreting it. So I can totally get how this, I just feel like it's falling into a trap and it's sloppy. And I feel like perhaps maybe certain people are a little bit, I don't know, understandably a little bit more, I don't know, sensitive to certain people and certain behaviors right now, particularly like what seems like might be calling out a hit to the world. I could totally get that, but at the same time, it also feels like a little bit of walking into a trap, because for those on the outside looking in who aren't completely bought in, like me, to the fact that Josh Hammer is almost certainly probably some sort of foreign spy, you kind of, if anyone attacks us with a slight bit of good faith, they go, oh, well, he used a little bit of harsh language. Okay, he was really trying to sell his point. All right. Like, it really... So I'm just saying, I'm just hazarding my own team here. Be safe on the off chance anyone fucking watches. I mean, I guess it doesn't so much matter as for the random anons and the replies, but just, I mean, really, even in general, I just think it's a smart way to think about things. Like, don't get too sloppy. Do get emotional. If you're going to just kind of Sun Tzu art of war type shit, just if you're gonna come at it, you need to come right and come with some good shit. So. Unless somebody has some sort of like hidden behind the scene receipt that they're hiding of Josh Hammer being like, I'm going to do this and it's going to be literally a call out to my handler, then it is just kind of people leaning into some ambiguous stuff. And from anyone from the outside looking in, it does look a little bit foolish. And I feel like it's weird that I'm the one saying this since I'm kind of like the conspiracy guy. But I don't know, I feel like I do typically try to see my stuff in levels of like, here's a level to which I find this plausible or not. So yeah, but I just find this to be a silly trap that's being fallen into, so I do want to hazard my people. But a secondary point, look at this fucking shit. I posted this at 8:05 a.m. It is 11:19 a.m. It's been over 3 hours. I have gotten 0 likes on this. And this feels like I should say that because it's almost like a posting your L's. But I have almost 11,000 followers, and I think I've told you in the show before about, like, maybe I've made mention, or maybe, I don't know if it's come up in any segments, but it's been a talking point by many that X is basically dead. There's been all sorts of interference. Now, maybe for some of the larger accounts, you may not notice this. Like, you hear all the time from some of the bigger people like, oh, X is so great. And sure, it's probably better than before, but I think a lot of people, I think there's probably a tiered system. Like, if you have over 100,000 followers, it's probably less noticeable or something. But yeah, there's definitely shadow banning going on. Like, I understand this message is something that maybe is a little bit, like, not popular with our movement right now. But the idea that, like, me as someone with 11,000 followers got 0 likes or anything from this in over 3 hours, yeah, X is fucking broken. So, I don't know, to kind of some of our topics about the tech fuckery afoot. And then more, I guess this is sort of in a similar such vein, in a little bit of the creepy, the creepy, what am I trying to get at here? Authoritarian state creeping in, I guess, particularly in deference to Israel, which makes this ever more creepy. But here is a Texas man who got swatted after posting online criticism of Israel, leading the Texas DPS and Bell County Sheriff's Office to show up at his home. An officer told him, "We're here because of the comments you made online about Israel." Says, "Is it free speech when Israel could just send your local cops your door for posts they don't like?" So let's watch this video, see. I don't know if it's just the Ring doorbell, but let's watch it. I find it particularly interesting.
Is that doorbell camera right there? Yeah. The dog, the Rottweiler. Oh, there's a dog in there? Yeah, Rottweiler. Yeah. Maybe. Let me look for it. Hey. There. Maybe that was the dog.
I think it just shows us talking to him. I guess just proof for those who care. No. Oh, here we go. Here's a better video.
Try that again.
We're here because of the comments you made online about the Jewish community. Are you
So what?
No, I'm saying, are you?
I have a freedom of speech, dude.
Yeah, no, we get that. I get that.
We just we gotta make sure that you're not.
Do you have a warrant?
No, that's why we're.
Okay, you see that sign?
Yeah.
See that says no soliciting? What you're doing is basically soliciting. You understand that, right? Yeah. It means you're not welcomed here.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Okay.
Stay off the lawn, please.
Kind of curious what this guy said, though. He's a little testy.
This is what they're doing, guys. You make comments about the Jews online, they'll fucking show up at your door. This is what they do. This is freedom of speech.
I mean, there's a really big, like, well, okay, but what the fuck did you say, dude? I mean, like, okay, to be fair, I guess generally speaking, yeah, but I also, like, I kind of really, really need to know what this guy said now, but let's keep going.
This is how much control Israel has over our country. Look at this response. For exercising my freedom of speech online. Wow. What a fucking joke. What a fucking joke. Can't wait to do some auditing of you boys. Bye-bye. Look at that. Sign says no soliciting. What do they think they're fucking doing? They got no warrant. Sign that says no soliciting does not give you a right to my curtilage. Bye-bye. Freedom of speech.
Maybe unpopular opinion, but the longer this video goes on, the less I like the person videoing it. The more I'm like, this feels performative, this feels gay. Like, I don't know. You see these videos like, I know my rights, right there, and you're like, yeah. But I don't know, I guess part of me is just like, it just feels performative. I mean, whatever. I don't know, just feels gay to me. I just feel like I understand the videoing to cover your ass, but I feel like if it was like me, the cops would come to my door and I videoed it, I'd be like, answer the door, videoing the situation, be like, hey, what do you want? I'm videoing this interaction. Is that okay? Yada, yada, yada. I'd be like, he's like, do you have a warrant? And be like, no. Okay, bye. Close the door. And that'd be it. Like, it wouldn't even be this whole fucking thing, but whatever. It wouldn't be this, oh, I'm going to fucking audit you guys. Oh, freedom of speech. I don't know. It just feels gay, but whatever. I do really kind of want to know what the fuck this guy said. And I'm not seeing anything. So there's a really big caveat. I want to know what the fuck this dude said. If it was just criticism of Israel, okay. But, yeah, I mean, yeah, he did say we're here because of the comments you made online about Israel, which, boy, is that quite a line to hear from the police as they're talking to you. That is pretty wild. All right, let's roll the chat, say our good mornings, then we'll get into foreign policy stuff. Good morning, Knife Safety Plus. Good morning, Tilla Spook. Good morning, Fred44. Good morning, Tom33. Good morning, CSESTP. God, that's the one that throws me off sometimes. CSESTP. There you go. I guess there's a TLE spooktacular going on right now. Nice, cool. Good gents over there. Good morning, Retardo, Genio. I'm partial to Aaron. He's my favorite. He's cool. Good morning, Retardio. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, John Black says I missed the pussy of the day. It was Noodles today, a beautiful little adorable chocolate girl. Good morning, Kyle. Oh, no, I thought there was something I was missing, but I guess it probably would have made sense to throw in with my Epstein segment, but whatever. Maybe we can save that for next week. But yeah, Prince Andrew got kicked out of the royal family. Nice catch, Knife Safety Plus. Totally meant to cover that, but I forgot that. There was a few other big things today, as you can tell. Good morning, Kyle. Knife Safety's academic docs sound much better than Lance Twiggs' bussy logs. Good morning, WC Cola. Let's hear from an expert in bussology. Good morning, Gotis. Good morning, good morning, good morning, Comment Mama. Good morning, Fat Cats. Good morning. Good morning, I say what now? Good morning, JP6 Gunner. CS says, as you get older, all humor takes a dad humor patina eventually. It sure does. The older I get, the more I fucking love dad humor. Good morning, not a guy who doesn't catch fish. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, King David. Just YouTube won't play live feed? What are you talking about? Are you guys having any YouTube issues, or is that just you? Good morning, everyone. Tom says, I need no evidence to believe Israel killed Charlie's point. The way they've gone so hard with using him to bludgeon everyone that disagrees with Israel is all I need to see. Definitely makes you suspicious. King David says he says he'll watch the replay, but hit the smash the like button. Man, what a bummer, dude. I don't know what's going on with King David's YouTube. I hope you guys aren't having the same issue. I have a good amount of people in here, so it's hard to believe that it would be a dead link or something. So, good morning, Jake Moore. Says elements of the right are using Charlie Kirk as a shield to protect their standing in their political wing. It's gone old and blatantly disingenuous very fast. You are correct. Big time. Good morning, Northside CA 707. Saying the Israeli reaction to Charlie Kirk is honestly the best evidence they did it so far. Yep, doesn't look good for him. Good morning, Bug Fights. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, Tony Chin. Good morning. Good morning, Cubertimo. Oh, nice. Fred is following me on Twitter. For those who aren't, follow me at Targeting Jose. We can fight the algo together. Not that I do a ton on there. I'm not a big Twitter whore these days. But every now and then I post my thoughts. Typically, it's like only when I'm like, I mostly just do it when I'm like, I want to remember to cover this on the morning show. So, like, you may see sometimes I quote tweet something and it's like not even really that significant of a thought. And it's just so that I remember later to cover it. I'm like, oh, I want to cover it in the morning show. And I'm like, that way, if I keep seeing notifications for people, like, then I'm like, oh yeah, that I want to cover it in the morning show. So that's a look inside my mind. Good morning, JC. Good morning, Ted. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Che Coho. Good morning. Good morning, Swedish Jim Goblin. 3 cars is crazy intimidation. Yeah, they do that for fucking everything, though. Like, I swear anytime you see a cop, it's at least 2 cars. At least. You never see 1 car. It's wild. Which I guess I kind of get, but whatever. Yeah, Nevsky says, no, I'm not going to harm anybody. Have a nice day, officers. It all need to be said. Yeah. Says, yeah, that Adam guy seems super gay. Yeah, exactly. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Retardio says the Juice in Ohio are employing police officers or private security for their neighborhood and temples. The J and local law connection is real. Good morning, Two Berry Delicious. Why are you worried about a man acting as his own man? I don't really know what to make of that comment, but okay. Good morning. Welcome to the chat. Good morning, Drackle Khan. Good morning, Murder, Death, Kill. Oh, cool. Everyone else is saying no YouTube working, so that's the issue. So whatever. I'm sorry. Who cares? Stop riding dude's jock. Who was I even just shitting on? I don't remember who was I just shitting on. Who's this guy upset about 3 minutes ago? Who was I making fun of 3 minutes ago? I don't know. Whatever. Okay. Well, keep chatting, commenter. Nice to have you here. Good morning, Boomer Sooner. Good morning, Kimberly. There. Good morning. Bug Fight says, if he didn't make a threat, it's wild. I agree. Yeah, if he didn't make a threat, it's wild. But it's like, it does make me wonder. You're like, what the fuck did you say? It's like, is it like a borderline threat? But yeah, if it's not a threat, it's like, yeah, the cops should not be there. Either way, what a wild statement for cops. Like, I'm here to talk to you about your statements about Israel. Just not a good. He probably maybe should have thought about a different line for that one. All right, let's get into some foreign policy, and then we'll move on to the main topics of the day. Netanyahu says the Israeli military will demilitarize Gaza if foreign troops don't. Sounds like threatening to start everything back up again. Netanyahu said on Thursday the military would disarm Hamas and demilitarize Gaza if foreign troops don't. Netanyahu told the graduating class of Israeli military cadets that Israel has more work to do in Gaza. At the end of the day, Hamas will be disarmed and Gaza will be demilitarized, he said. If foreign troops do it, great. If they don't do it, we will. Netanyahu and other Israeli officials have made it clear that they are eager to restart Israel's full-blown genocidal military campaign in the Gaza Strip, and Israel's repeatedly violated the ceasefire deal by launching attacks in Gaza, which have killed over 200 Palestinians since the truce began. The leader's comments came as the U.S. is involved in negotiations for an international force to enter Gaza. The idea is for foreign troops to take the place of IDF soldiers inside Gaza. Israel strongly objected to the idea of Turkish presence in Gaza, but according to a report from Axios, the U.S. is pushing for Turkey to be involved. The report said Azerbaijan, Egypt, and Indonesia have shown a willingness to send troops, but there are concerns about the possibility of clashing with Hamas. The U.S. plan also involves establishing a Palestinian police force trained and vetted by the U.S., Egypt, and Jordan. I don't know, kind of reminds me of Afghanistan, but whatever. Hamas has agreed to give up governance in Gaza to an independent Palestinian committee, but the group's public position on disarmament is that it's not willing to give up its weapons until it can be replaced by the armed forces of a Palestinian state. While Netanyahu is vowing to disarm Hamas, he has failed to defeat the group despite Israel's destruction of Gaza and slaughter of at least 68,000 Palestinians. Israel's looking to stoke conflict between Palestinians and is backing at least 4 anti-Hamas militias that are operating under the watch of the IDF in Israeli-occupied Gaza. The main group Israel is supporting is a gang led by Yasser Abu Shabab, who admitted to looting aid trucks in 2024, which is rich considering the claims coming out of Israel against Hamas. Some members of his group, which is also based in southern Gaza, have ties to ISIS, according to Israeli media. Now moving on to Venezuela. I guess not Venezuela, just kind of the Caribbean generally. Pentagon tells Congress it doesn't know who it's killing in Latin American boat strikes. So, we kind of, now I guess we're getting a little bit more intel, and the intel is that we don't have intel. Because, the going theme with these every single time is like, we killed somebody, we murdered somebody on the high seas. And you're like, okay, do you have proof that he was this drug dealer, and that even despite the fact that wouldn't really make it okay to murder him, do you at least have something for the pretense you gave here, some sort of proof of your pretense? No. Every single time, no. Here's a video of us blowing some people up, and so now this is where they're at. So the U.S. War Department officials didn't know the identities of the 61 people who have been extrajudicially executed in U.S. military strikes on boats in waters near Venezuela and in the eastern Pacific Ocean, Politico report on Thursday, citing House Democrats who attended a classified briefing on the campaign. The officials said that they do not need to positively identify individuals on these vessels to do the strikes. They just need to prove a connection to smuggling, said Representative Sarah Jacobs, a Democrat from California. When we tried to get more information, we did not get satisfactory answers. While the Trump administration has cited overdose deaths in the U.S. related to fentanyl to justify the bombing campaign, lawmakers were told in the briefing that the boats that had been targeted were allegedly smuggling cocaine, though the Pentagon has not provided evidence to back up its claims about what the vessels were carrying. They argued that cocaine is a facilitating drug of fentanyl, but that was not a satisfactory answer for most of us, Jacob says. So that's their connection, is that they're trying to be like, well, they're moving cocaine because the fentanyl is the big issue here. Everyone obviously knows that if you are going to try to make some sort of, especially a straight through drug argument of how it's literally poison and killing people, and what is a prevalent problem, it's fentanyl. Fentanyl's a thing. That makes sense. Whereas cocaine's not that. Cocaine's actually, funny enough, actually a pretty safe drug. I'm not at all recommending going and ruining your life and getting hooked on cocaine. It's a hell of a drug. It's a lot of fun, but it will. That's the problem. It's too much damn fun. You'll spend a lot of money on it and I don't know, spin out. But don't do that. But point being is it's a very, very different thing than fentanyl. It's a different problem. But, I mean, yes, it is true that it's common that fentanyl is cut in cocaine, but it is kind of wild to go, oh, well, it's because our concern is the fentanyl, but we're going after the cocaine because that's what the fentanyl is put in. Okay. I mean, I don't know. But whatever. The briefing on Thursday came after the Pentagon shut out Democrats from another briefing it held with Republicans a day earlier, which left Democratic senators fuming. Democrats who attended Thursday briefing said Pentagon lawyers were pulled from the meeting at the last minute. Am I satisfied? Absolutely not. And the last word that I gave to the admiral was, I hope you recognize the constitutional peril that you're in and the peril you were putting our troops in. The Democrat from Massachusetts told reporters after the briefing. Jacobs said that based on what she was told, even if Congress authorized a bombing campaign, it would still be illegal. There's nothing that we heard in there that changed my assessment that this is completely illegal, that it is unlawful, and even if Congress authorized it, it would still be illegal because there are extrajudicial killings where we have no evidence, she said. Criticism of the U.S. bombing campaign has also come from Republicans, most prominently from Senator Rand Paul. No one said their name. No one said what evidence. No one said whether they're armed. And we've had no evidence presented, Paul said this week, of the people who've been targeted. They summarily execute people without presenting evidence to the public. So it's wrong. I also think it's worthwhile mentioning that there was one of the major Navy admirals, I think, or whatever. Was he a general? I forget what his rank was, but he was pretty high up, and he had just I think he's only like a year into his command of one of the major carriers, and he stepped down over this, so that's kind of a big deal. He didn't say it was over that, but that's kind of, how military honor works. He probably wouldn't say it was the case, but it strikes me as there are cracks going on there. Moving on to Russia. Russia says it will respond if the U.S. starts testing nuclear weapons. We talked about yesterday that Trump was talking about starting these things up again. Well, Russia says they'll respond if so, but we're still kind of unclear what exactly Trump meant. So let's kind of hope we can back these guys down. No, this is what the Kremlin had to say. So the United States is a sovereign nation, has a right to make sovereign decisions. However, I would like to recall President Putin's repeatedly stated position. If anyone breaks a moratorium, Russia will respond in kind, referring to treaties, that all the numerous treaties that we're involved in with Russia to prevent such a thing from occurring. Moving on to Lebanon, the Lebanese president orders army to confront the Israeli incursions. Well, we've been kind of occasionally talking about Lebanon and how they've been getting bullied by Israel through us. We've essentially been the proxy for Israel's bullying through our envoy, Barak, over there, has been constantly, multiple times a month, reminding them that essentially kind of doing the old like, oh, wow, if you don't do it, that's going to be so crazy. Israel's totally going to fuck you up. We don't have anything to do with this, but kind of essentially being the one delivering threats for Israel. Like, oh, we're going to let them do this. Meanwhile, Israel is entirely every single day, basically, someone's usually dying or there's some sort of strikes or some sort of destruction or incursion into their land. Over and over and over and over again. It's like an absurd ceasefire they supposedly have right now. And I guess they've finally had enough of it. They've been killing people regularly, but I guess they raided a municipal building. They killed what was supposedly a sleeping worker. They claimed that the suspect posed an immediate threat to them, and so they got to then murder them, despite they're in Lebanon where they're not supposed to be. And in response, this is they're not having it. They're essentially saying, allowing them to confront them anytime, whenever this happens again. So I think things might get live there, which I know we've been things have probably been getting ready to get live for a while over there anyways, because they've been wanting to they've been wanting this. They've been pushing this whole Hezbollah disarmament thing, which is never going to happen. And if it did, it would require a civil war. So they're essentially threatening either disarm Hezbollah or Israel. You're going to go to war with Israel. And it seems like, if I had to guess, judging how they're finally being like, all right, we're not taking this shit from them anymore. Seems like they made their decision. They were given one choice or the other, and here we are. All right, on to the last foreign policy story. We haven't been covering this a whole lot, but there's been some crazy stuff going on in Sudan. The genocides have reached there has reached such a level of proportion that you can see the blood from space, quite literally. That's which I believe that's like first we've ever heard of this being a thing. You can look at these photos right here, and you can see on them, you can see with the discoloration, that is blood. That is blood that can be seen from space. Now, what exactly happened over there? Well, let's we'll cover the daily news on it. I think we'll kind of figure that out as we go. Now, calls growing for the U.S. and other countries to end arms sales to the United Arab Emirates over its support for the Rapid Support Forces, the militia that has been executing civilians following its takeover of the city of Al-Fashir in Sudan's western Darfur region. While the UAE had previously denied arming the RSF, there has been extensive reporting about its covert weapons pipeline to the group, and British and Chinese-made weapons sold to Abu Dhabi have ended up in the hands of RS fighters. As we witness horrific scenes in Al-Fashir, the UAE continues arming the RSF, which the U.S. has determined is committing genocide. We must pass my bill to block arms sales to the UAE until it stops fueling the RSF's war crimes in Sudan. Senator Chris Van Hollen from, Maryland said this week, according to Truth Out. Gregory Meeks, Democrat from New York, the top Democrat of the House Armed Services Committee, has also called for the passing of legislation he introduced that would cut off arms sales to countries that supply the RSF and its opponent, the Sudan Armed Forces, which has also committed atrocities in the conflict. This is unacceptable. My Sudan legislation would cut off U.S. defense sales to external actors funding the conflict in Sudan. It's also why I will continue holding all major U.S. arms sales going to the UAE while it continues to arm the RSF. The U.S. must do all we can to help end this devastating conflict. In January, the Biden administration formally accused the RSF of committing genocide in Sudan. The RSF and allied militias have systematically murdered men and boys, even infants, on an ethnic basis and deliberately targeted women and girls from certain ethnic groups for rape and other forms of brutal sexual violence. Then Secretary of State Antony Blinken said in a statement, which also accused the SAF of committing war crimes. Blinken's declaration came about 2 months after the Biden administration advanced a $1.2 billion rocket sale to the UAE. At the time, it was clear the UAE was sending weapons to RSF. In May of this year, the Trump administration approved a $1.3 billion helicopter sale to the UAE. So really, we haven't focused on this too much because we kind of weren't super connected to this. But I guess there is a connection, and that's why we're talking about it now. We're pushing to essentially stop our arms sales to UAE, which essentially probably a lot of time, I think most of the times end up being either partially or almost entirely not really sales anyways. So, this is a good thing, obviously, to, cut off, regardless of whether there's a genocide going on. But now we would be obviously arming the people doing this. So, I think it's good that we're making these moves. We'll see if anything comes of it. I'm not too hopeful, but it is I don't know, it's something worth covering, but it's kind of insane. We got a big old genocide going on over there too. And of course, in a roundabout way, of course, we're funding it because we do fucking everything. But all right, let's go through the chat, check through, see what you guys got to say, and then we'll get into the main topics of the day. Anybody new in the chat? CSESTP said I had a guy in my neighborhood get arrested for calling the local Jew a grammar Nazi. Got charged with hate speech. That's kind of wild. That's a nuts one. Let me see. Justin Valentine, good morning, says FBI thwarts terror attack in guess where? Dearborn, Michigan, of course. JC, we heard about your anti-Semitic posts online. You ain't seen nothing yet by BTO plays loudly. Yeah, Nevsky says, I've been saying the worst things about Jews for 5 years and Texas cops haven't visited me yet. Yeah, I still haven't got any visits. I mean, I guess I don't go too hard, but yeah, Northside, I think we all agree Fent is not good, but that comes from China. Exactly. Northside says you meet the coolest girls doing cocaine. CS just asked if I've been hunting. Nah, I don't hunt. Nope. Don't have time for that. Knife says Maduro said the real bad guys were the one behind making Hollywood movies. What did he mean by this? I think you know what he meant by that, Knife Safety Plus, and I think he's definitely onto something. Justin says cartels literally need supply to be curtailed by law enforcement or the market would collapse. They probably sip wine every time a drug boat is hit, assuming they are drug boats. That's a good point. Yeah, that is what drives off the price. CS says we need to start our own No Way Jose hunting group. I mean, yeah, go for it. Make a little tab in the Telegram. I'd like to see the pictures of you guys' exploits. Yeah, CS says, holy shit, that blood stain is the size of a fucking building. Yep. Bump up the likes, people. More listeners than likes right now. Change that shit, please. I believe Nevsky says more Christians being slaughtered. I don't have a full grip on the ethnic breakdown. Maybe as this goes on, we'll understand more. I believe this is, from my understanding, essentially kind of over, I think it's either gold or oil type thing. Essentially, this group wants to take over. It's really pretty basic, this, chimp out type we take over region thing. But then the UAE is, maybe it's oil or was it gold? I think it's oil. I forget. Some sort of natural resource they're trying to get in on. But yeah, pretty simple stuff, really, is from my understanding. Fat Cat says, I'm a retired coach and I'm 99.9% sure that shooting boats is illegal. LOL. Yeah. All right, guys, let's get into the main stuff we came here for today. Here is, this kind of starting off. Apparently, Ehud Barak was reporting his Russian contacts to Jeffrey Epstein before reporting them to Mossad. Legitimately insane bombshell. What he's showing here is an excerpt. It says, Israeli military strategist, often described as emotionally handicapped, relied on Epstein to help him craft his messaging when dealing with other political officials and business elites. Epstein, for instance, asked Barak to wait until they could speak privately before Barak notified intelligence leaders of a deal with Vexelberg. Do not go to number one too quickly. I understand more now, so we should speak. The euphemism number one is a moniker used to refer to the head of the Mossad, dating back to Barak's days as director of Israeli military intelligence when the Mossad director's identity was kept secret. I don't know how that necessarily proves that what he just said there. Maybe there's more. But anyways, here's Ryan Grimm saying you might want to pour a drink or two. This one, new from me and Maz Hussein. Says Jeffrey Epstein and the Mossad, how the sex trafficker helped Israel build a back channel to Russia amid Syrian civil war. Which is, I find this, obviously I haven't read this yet. We're going through this together, but I do find this particularly interesting. For those who can remember a little while back with the whole Syria upset and Assad and all that, and him getting out, and there was always this, Russia was always the backstop of Syria, and the question always became, there was that one day where, oh shit, Assad's gone, and it was kind of like, whoa, that was kind of a crazy chess move that happened all of a sudden. We were kind of like, whoa, what happens now? Like, how does it Russia, like, was there a deal made? And like, there were all sorts of speculation about deals with Russia to keep them out of this, because how did they even pull this off? Yada, yada, yada. And I don't know. Here we go. I mean, maybe they're speaking about something else here, but it sounds like that's kind of might be what they're saying. Although Jeffrey Epstein died significantly, but there was serious stuff going on back then too. Obviously, he wouldn't have been involved in the late stage stuff. But anyways, let's go ahead and read this. I think we'll get a clearer idea of what we're looking at here. So this is a drop site, Jeffrey Epstein, the Mossad, how the sex trafficker helped Israel build it back. Oh, I read this art of the title. I'm retarded. All right, let's get into it. So Jeffrey Epstein facilitated efforts to open a back channel between Israel and the Kremlin during the Syrian civil war, according to leaked emails from former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. The trove of emails exchanged at the height of the Syrian civil war between 2013 and 2016 reveal Epstein's successful efforts to secure a private meeting between Barak and Russian President Vladimir Putin to discuss a Russian-brokered end to the conflict, including winning Russian support for a negotiated removal of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Epstein was an invaluable resource for Israel's former prime minister, who also served as head of intelligence and defense minister throughout his career, sharing whispers from within Russian elite circles and intel on Putin's interlocutors in Europe and the U.S., and even advising him on how to engage with Mossad. Barak, fresh out of his role as Israeli defense minister, built a deep portfolio of investments and business relationships around the world with Epstein's help. On February 21st, 2014, Epstein wrote to Barak, with civil unrest exploding in Ukraine, Syria, Somalia, Libya, and the desperation of those in power, "Isn't this perfect for you?" Barak replied, "You're right in a way, but not simple to transform it into a cash flow, a subject for Saturday." These efforts also provided cover for covert diplomacy on behalf of the Israeli government. Together, Barak and Epstein sought to pressure the Obama administration to either intervene directly in the Syrian war or make concessions to the Kremlin in exchange for Assad's graceful exit. In their exchanges, Epstein expressed his frustration at the Obama administration's failures to contain Tehran as the two men searched for opportunities to promote U.S. strikes on Iran. Despite securing a sit-down with Putin in the summer of 2013, they did not succeed in convincing Russia to support Assad's ouster, but the negotiations set the stage for U.S.-Russia cooperation on disarmament of Syria's chemical weapons arsenal a few months later. Michael Oren, former Israel ambassador to the U.S., wrote in his memoir that Israel's diplomatic leadership was told to avoid being perceived as a player in Syria. Clandestine actors sought to shape agendas in Moscow and Washington, while Israeli officials denied involvement and used the media to legitimize red lines for airstrikes inside Syria. After their failed attempt to remove Assad, Barak and Epstein sought to leverage the Russian channel again in 2015, as Barak pushed for U.S. strikes on Iran and rejected Obama's nuclear deal framework. The wild thing about this whole story is it really is that like the shadow of Epstein still looms well over a decade to a very real degree, because it sounds like, as I was alluding to, it very much is what I said before. They said 2013 and 2016, I think they were doing these wheeling and dealing and kind of talking about what if this, what if that, and like we just saw Assad getting out and less than 6 months ago, I think, and we also Russia kind of let that happen, even seemingly facilitated it, and it seemingly was something that was made possible by Epstein almost a decade before it even happened, which is nuts. All right, anyways, Barak failed to convince the Obama administration to change course. The plot, nevertheless, illustrated Epstein's knack for stealing superpowers towards Israel's interests by leveraging a social network that intersected the Israeli, American, and Russian intelligence communities. Leaked emails came from the same archive previously reported by DropSite. Materials released by the hackers, known as Handala, and disseminated by Distributed Denial of Secrets. The emails include extensive, previously unpublished documents and photographs, Barak's inner circle, including non-public information verified by DropSite. Many documents from the Handala hack were independently validated by records released by the U.S. Oversight Committee this month. Our ongoing series reveals how Epstein used elite networks and quasi-official institutions to promote Israeli security interests and enrich his circle of friends and companions. The story follows the same pattern with the highest of stakes, a chaotic war in Israel's ever-expanding border and the balance of power between the United States and Russia. Barak did not respond to requests for comment. Epstein died in jail in New York during the first Trump administration. The news outlet previously reported on some of this correspondence. All right. In the early hours of May 2013, former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak emailed his close friend Jeffrey Epstein with an urgent message. Are you awake? If yes, please call. Barak wrote Epstein at 1 a.m. in New York. Shortly after they spoke, Barak emailed again to ask Epstein to keep their conversation private. Jeff, please don't share the info with any of our friends. Epstein replied, of course not. I think you should let Putin know you will be in Moscow. See if he wants private time. Barak and Epstein, keep in mind, this is a prime minister. I don't know if this is when he was a former at the time, a former prime minister. I believe Ehud also was he Intel guy? If not, I believe he was one of the Unit 1800 or whatever guys. And then, so between Epstein, essentially, he's in these talks between essentially Putin and a former prime minister, which is just nuts. Anyways, Barak and Epstein built a back channel to Putin in hopes of winning Russia's support to remove Syrian President Bashar al-Assad from power, according to leaked emails from Barak's inbox. Before approaching Putin, Barak and Epstein sought to use one of the major American newspapers to frame Israel's narrative about the Syrian war and telegraph a framework for peace talks led by the U.S. and Russia. That spring, the Syrian civil war entered its third year. Popular uprising against the Assad regime had rapidly devolved into a brutal sectarian conflict fueled by foreign powers. The flow of Russian and Iranian weapons inside Syria and the threat of their diversion to Israel's weapons were among Israel's top security priorities. Since the early days of the war, Israel's security leaders believed Assad's downfall was imminent. Barak, then serving as Israel's defense minister, told the Washington Post in December 2011 that Assad's fall was inevitable and a matter of weeks, not a matter of months or years. More than a year later, Barak's prediction had still not come true. With Russia and Iran's support, Assad stubbornly clung to power. Israeli officials, recognizing the need to engage Russia, visited Moscow in January of 2013 to discuss concerns about Syria's chemical weapons stockpile falling into the hands of Hezbollah in Lebanon or Sunni militants linked to al-Qaeda. Meanwhile, Israel escalated its operations within Syria's borders. In late January, the Israeli Air Force conducted an airstrike on Damascus intended to halt the transfer of surface-to-air missiles to Hezbollah. Barak postured about the strikes at a security conference the following month. When we say something, we mean it. He reiterated his assertion that Assad's fall is coming imminently, and when it happens, this will be a major blow to the Iranians and Hezbollah. Assad refused to bend, and Hezbollah's strategic gains on Israel's borders increased the pressure to remove Iran's man in Damascus. Rapprochement with the Kremlin offered a solution. Barak stepped down from his post in March 2013 after the failure of his new political party to contest Knesset elections. His retirement from formal office, he said, meant that he now would have time to study, write, live, and enjoy. Instead, he immediately began working with Epstein to conduct covert diplomatic work in support of Israeli security interests abroad. The key to Barak's back-channel diplomacy with Russia was his relationship with Viktor Vekselberg, a Russian-Israeli oligarch. Okay, that explains that first excerpt that when we started, that's who he was talking to. A Russian-Israeli oligarch and owner of the multinational conglomerate Renova Group. Barak offered his services as a strategic consultant to Renova, a position that would generate a lucrative salary for himself and further his ambitions in the global mining and energy sectors, while enhancing his access to powerful figures in the Russian elite. Barak kept Epstein abreast of every update on his courtship with Vekselberg. As Barak progressed toward a formal agreement with Renova, Epstein counseled Barak on contract negotiations, writing on April 27th, "I think you should propose all up front. No need for a written agreement until later." Beneath the surface of mundane contract details, Epstein and Barak worked on a covert plan with the support of Israeli intelligence, regime change in Damascus. The Israeli military strategist, often described as emotionally handicapped, relied on Epstein to help him craft his messaging when dealing with other political officials and business elites. Epstein, for instance, asked Barak to wait until they could speak privately before Barak notified intelligence leaders of a deal with Vekselberg. "Do not go to number one too quickly. I understand more now, so we should speak." The euphemism number one is a moniker used to refer to the head of the Mossad dating back to Barak's days as director of Israeli military intelligence, when the Mossad director's identity was kept secret. As the Renova contract was being finalized, a $1 million advance and a $1 million quarterly retainer, Barak planned a trip to Moscow on May 12 to meet with Vexelberg. A few hours after Barak informed Epstein of his Moscow plans, Epstein shared some intelligence about one of Putin's interlocutors, the head of the Council of Europe. On May 20th, Jagland is going to see Putin in Sochi. Jagland asked that I make myself available to meet him sometime in June to explain how Russia can structure deals in order to encourage Western investment. I never met him. I wanted you to know. Barak, who was working closely with Epstein to cut deals in the Eurasian energy sector, wrote back, I know Jagland for a long time. Probably we have to talk about it. Epstein responded with a short list of past and present American national security leaders who his response implied could also be useful for Russia talks. He wrote, okay, Panetta, Alexander, Clark, likely referring to Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta, NSA Director Keith Alexander, and Cybersecurity Czar Richard Clark. And here's the emails to prove it. Upon his return from Moscow, Barak contacted George Tenet, former director of the CIA, to pitch a talk he, Barak, could give at Allen and Company's Sun Valley event in July, a summer camp for billionaires and elite politicians to convene and negotiate deals. The topic, think of Syria, CW, background of Iran's elections and nuke program, global terror, North Korea, etc. Probably briefing for a selected group. Barak was not recorded on the guest list. In the meantime, Epstein and Barak crafted an op-ed for Barak to publish that could shape the narrative for a Russian-led transition in Syria that secured Israel's interests. On May 19th, Barak sent Epstein a draft titled The Kremlin Holds the Keys, which argued that Assad's regime had permanently lost its legitimacy and Russia should take leadership to negotiate a swift end to the war or see years of bloody massacres in a no-man's land Syria. A post-Assad Syria, wrote Barak, was a foregone conclusion. It was now up to Russia to decide whether or not to convince Assad to leave or prolong the war. Barak's editorial proposed the U.S. and its allies should accept a price for a Russia-led solution to the war. He acknowledged that removing Assad from power should not compromise Russia's interests and perspectives in Syria, namely Russia's deep ties within the Syrian security apparatus and its access to naval bases at Tartus and Latakia. He framed the chemical weapons threat as a decisive issue requiring initiative by the Russians, who knew the generals of the chemical weapons unit on a first-name basis. The backdrop of Barak's editorial was Russia's looming delivery of advanced weapons systems to Syria, including anti-ship missiles and anti-air defenses, which threatened to further entrench Israel's enemies. In the weeks prior, Israel began escalating its operations inside Syria, conducting more airstrikes on Damascus to block Iranian missiles bound for Hezbollah. Russia responded by sending its warships into the Mediterranean. Barak felt enormous urgency to secure a face-to-face meeting with Putin as soon as possible before the conflict escalated further. Besides Epstein, he also requested comments from Ron Dermer, close confidant to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who was preparing to become Israel's next ambassador to the U.S. Barak wrote to Dermer, I don't care how you've corrected it, yours will always be better in clarity and conciseness than mine. Try earlier, I don't want events to overwhelm us. Dermer swiftly returned a refined copy with more fluent English. As was typical of Epstein's style, he sent back a rough cut, riddled with spelling and grammatical errors. Unlike Dermer's narrower cut, Epstein significantly revised Barak's piece and added a new title, Wait Until It's Too Late. Epstein's draft was more forceful and polemical, scolding the U.S. for failing to act and adding an unambiguous statement of Israel's national interests that was absent in Barak's draft. Israel cannot simply wait until it's too late. And here's the email, and then I think it's like then going over the piece itself. I think we're seeing pieces from the piece. So yeah, I'm not going to read all that. Epstein did indeed wait until it was too late to send his edits. Barak wrote back, unfortunately, we came to a deadline and had to send somewhat less brilliant text. I hope one of the big three will buy it. The New York Times rejected Barak's editorial. The Times International opinion editor wrote, we are potentially interested, but we feel the key part of the piece is left vague. Proposing a Russian-mediated solution is only an appealing op-ed for us if the mechanics are spelled out. Barack is a military man and an experienced negotiator, so I have no doubt he has something specific in mind. What does he think the price will be? What is the Russian incentive to budge now? Epstein conveyed a similar criticism of Barack's draft. I thought the article should have more of a headline so that you are clearly associated with the position. After the rejection from the New York Times, Barack wrote Epstein back, "You are right." Epstein then expanded on his own aggressive view, arguing that the U.S. was waiting too long to intervene when it came to Palestinians in Iran. I really like the wait until it's too late to be your critique of the community's foreign policy. Years ago, things moved slowly. Stalin took weeks to defend, months of preparation, strategies, etc. Today, these things force decision for good and for bad. The U.S. wait policy, the Palestinian wait policy, Iran wait policy. Barack decided not to address the specific questions posed by the New York Times editor. He wrote to his spokesman on May 21st, "Tell them they can get a full description of answers to all their questions in a different piece. Not now, because it will empty the main message." The Times rejection was followed by rejections from Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal. The op-ed was eventually published without Epstein's changes in the Telegraph on May 30th, 2013. Upon returning to the Russian presidency, in May 2012, Putin sought to neutralize widespread street protests, which he claimed were fomented by external agents funded by U.S.-backed NGOs. Putin had a long-standing, mutually hostile relationship to the Clinton family. The protests against his election, which he pinned squarely on the shoulders of the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, ratcheted those tensions ever higher, foreshadowing a contest that would consume American politics in the years to come. Watching the collapsing governments of the so-called Arab Spring from afar and seeking to prevent a similar color revolution in Russia, Putin began a balancing act of centralizing political and economic authority while preserving channels for foreign capital investment. Epstein, close with former President Bill Clinton, had a role to play. Epstein once bragged to a journalist that he often flew to Moscow to see Vladimir Putin and enjoyed close ties with Russian business and political elites. The American financier specialized in moving money across borders, and his expertise would be useful in stemming capital flight from Russia and amid Putin's crackdown on foreign agents. On May 22, 2013, Epstein informed Barack he had received and rejected an invitation to meet with Putin at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum the next month. Putin asked that I meet him in St. Petersburg the same time as the economic conference. I told him no. If he wants to meet, he will need to set aside real time and privacy. So once again, just a snapshot of the life of this man. He is turning down meetings with world leaders just because he's like, come back to me when you actually have some real time to spend with me. You're like, okay, that's some pretty big dick shit. Barack found his own official reason to attend the conference, supporting a technology incubator in Moscow led by Vekselberg. The Kremlin was threatening to cut funding for the Skolkovo Innovation Center, Russia's Silicon Valley, which Renova was heavily involved in developing. Renova sent Barack an email with talking points to discuss in St. Petersburg and include the contact information for Putin's foreign policy aide, Yuri Ushakov, which Barack could use to request FaceTime with the president. Barack reached out to Putin's aide 2 days later on May 26 to request a meeting with Putin in St. Petersburg just prior to the conference. I would like to meet with President Putin for 30 to 40 minutes at an early opportunity, preferably before the main June events, Barack wrote, adding, I'm fully aware of the intense burden on the president's schedule these days, but I urge you to draw the president's attention to my requests. Epstein was eager to get an update about the Russians' reply, and he emailed to confirm if Barack was coming to Henry Kissinger's 90th birthday party in New York on June 3rd, 2013. That event would also be attended by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, the lead broker for U.S. policy on Syria and Iran. Barack replied, I'll attend Dr. K birthday, R.E. Putin, I'll talk to you later. Ushakov's chief of staff acknowledged Barack's message on June 5 and passed along Ushakov's direct phone number to coordinate the meeting details. Then on June 7th, the first of Edward Snowden's bombshell revelations on the NSA Dragnet Prism surveillance was published, casting a shadow over Barack and Epstein's planning. Barack sent Epstein an email with subject line, New York Times missing editorial, referring to the New York Times editorial board's President Obama's dragnet, a scathing piece on the PRISM revelations that day. The two men recognized the Snowden leaks could undermine the Obama administration's leverage in negotiations with Putin. Barack asked Epstein to read the article in which the New York Times editors claimed the president had lost all credibility by abusing his executive powers. Barack wrote, find and read it, our conversation about what could Eric Holder have done to help his boss. Epstein replied, any confirmation on St. Petersburg? Despite making contact with Ushakov, Barack's consulting company, Hyperion, had still not been registered for the conference. June 10th, Barack emailed Boris Kalardi, CEO of Julius Baer, a Swiss private bank where he was also an advisor. I need your office help. Russia is not yet orderly run place. I've gotten official confirmation of a meeting with Putin, but Hyperion's registration file has not yet confirmed. Probably they never heard the name. I think that if JB will approach the organizing body on my behalf, they will conclude it within hours. With Julius Baer's help, Barack swiftly locked in his appointment. In less than 24 hours, Ushakov's office confirmed the meeting appointment time. Barack wrote back, trying to convey the urgency and importance of the meeting. I'd never spend the time of the president and won't do it now. The meeting is important, so make sure it's done during the SPEIF. The same week, Israeli intelligence officials used official channels to engage with other stakeholders in Syria as Mossad Director Tamir Pardo arrived in Ankara for talks with Turkish spy chief Hakan Fidan. On June 12th, Epstein sent Barack another piece of intelligence to prepare him for the meeting in St. Petersburg. Putin will do his staff in the summer, bringing only very trusted people closer, more info on phone or face-to-face. Putin's meeting with Barack was not logged on any SPIEF event calendars for the SPIEF conference, but Barack's emails confirm a meeting scheduled for the evening of June 20th, and a Russian journalist saw Barack waiting to speak with Putin again late in the evening of June 21st, after Angela Merkel's visit to the Hermitage. On June 24th, Barack sent an email back to Ushakov reporting that the back-channel communication was successful. Barack confirmed that messages from Putin had been transmitted to relevant parties. Please note and convey to your boss that the two messages were conveyed yesterday night fully and accurately to the top players. Barack's email did not specify the identity of the players or the content of the messages. Previous day, Edward Snowden arrives at Moscow's Sheremetyevo airport to seek asylum. Barack acknowledged Ushakov's difficult position and invited him to follow up later. I understand in the meantime new issues are crowding on your plate, Barack wrote. If you need more details, I'm on the same number. All right, let's cut that one. I'm going to look into this more on my own, but I think you guys get the idea. I'm going to read probably more of this on my own time, but the crazy degree of connection we're dealing with. But yeah, we probably have like a good 3 more segments of the story. That's only about half of it. Go check it out on your own. This is over on Drop Site News by Ryan Grimm and Murtaza Hussein. So go check out that piece. All right, let's look in the chat real quick. See what you guys got to say. And then we'll get into the next piece. It's a Ken piece on the federal craziness. Oh, sorry. Where's the Telegram info on Patreon? CS, I got to send it out individually, or I'll post it again because unfortunately there's not like a way to like keep it up there perpetually. So I got to post it every now and then. Or if you're a new Patreon, hit me up. So I'll try to post it soon, but you also can hit me up on Twitter and I'll just send you the link real quick. So if you want to get in on that. Justin says Epstein was a messenger, among other things. Yep. Oligarch equals organized crime kingpin. Robin says in her book, Nobody's Girl, the author, Virginia Giuffre, mentions a violent and angry client who was particularly disrespectful to her and others. Is allegedly to be former Prime Minister Barack. Yes, that was one she's saying she was bleeding out of all of her orifices and begged Epstein to not have to go back to him. And he basically said that's just it do be like that sometimes. Good morning, Fire Pixie. Good to see you joining the chat. Good morning. Good morning. What is my costume? I'm a bug. That's what I am. For you who's asking, Gerald Hall. Good to see you. All right, cool. Let's get into Ken's piece here. It says, it's been known for decades that the FBI has a separate filing system for records that it wants to keep secret. Now, a newly unearthed record shows that the U.S. Marshal Service has a similar system. Like the FBI system, it was called the Zero Files. So let's go through this. Their whole system of cover-ups. So the U.S. Marshal Service has a secretive record-keeping system akin to the one established by former FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover more than 80 years ago, according to a newly unearthed government document provided to Headline USA. The newly unearthed document is an April 97 FBI report about the Bureau's investigation into Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh. The FBI report was provided to this publication by Utah attorney Jesse Trentadue, who obtained thousands of FBI records via the Freedom of Information Act. It was first discovered by PhD historian Wendy Painting, who works with Trentadue. According to the FBI report, agents were investigating whether McVeigh had sent threatening letters to former U.S. Marshal Director Henry Hudson. FBI agent Leslie Hahn wrote in the report that she spoke with the U.S. Marshal's informational resource specialist named David Turk, who told her that no such letters from McVeigh were found in the Marshal Service database. However, Turk also told Hahn that he didn't search the Marshal's Zero Files, which contain information received but not entered into the database, the FBI report says. So you can even see here, this is what we just had up a minute ago. This is a document he's referring to. You can see in here, it says IRS Turk advised this database, we're looking at the document right now, does not, however, query anything sent to the Zero Files, in quotes, which contain information received but not entered into the base, or into the database, which is directly referring, now this is, as he said, this is a different group, this is the Marshals, so it was already established as a thing the FBI did, because they had been caught with their pants down, I believe, by Trentadue, in one of his many, different crusades. But the Marshal Service's record-keeping system, described in Agent Hahn's report, is strikingly similar to the FBI system, which also called the Zero Files in the 90s. It has been widely reported the FBI system entails agents putting evidence that would be used in court in an official case file but keep other records separate. The separate file, which has had various names, keeps potentially damaging and embarrassing records from both defense attorneys and the wider public. But while the FBI's Zero Files have been public knowledge for decades, Trentadue said the newly unearthed report is the first time he's seen anything about the Marshals also having something similar. If the Marshals have something like this, you can imagine that just about every agency does, said Trentadue, who also provided an email suggesting that the ATF has a secret filing system too. The Marshal Service declined to comment on the matter, citing the government shutdown as a reason for its silence. During the lapse of appropriations, all public affairs functions are limited to mission essential and related to emergencies involving the safety of human life and the protection of property. Marshal Service Public Affairs Officer Brady McCarran said in an email. Now, the history of the Zero Files. The FBI's secretive book record-keeping dates back at least the 1940s when former Director Hoover created what was known as the June Mail, also known as the June Files. All Bureau records that were not required to be destroyed and that authorized illegal acts or were the fruits of illegal buggings, wiretappings, or burglaries were ordered to be designated as June Mail, wrote civil rights attorney Alexander Charnes in his book Cloak and Gavel, FBI Wiretaps, Bugs, and Informers in the Supreme Court. June Mail was sent to a high-security safe called the Special File Room. These parallel filing systems were designed so that agents could plausibly deny knowledge of illegal tactics. According to an article in the Center for Public Integrity, the June Files were ended in 1978. Wink, wink. But that didn't stop the secrecy. Instead, the FBI simply renamed its system the aforementioned Zero Files. That moniker lasted through the 90s until the Bureau again renamed it to the iDrive. Then not long after that to the S Drive. It's not publicly known what name the FBI and other agencies have for their secretive systems today. Cue the tower in the chat, obviously. Trentadue, whose FOIA litigation helped bring the S and I drives to light around 2011, told the Center for Public Integrity at the time that the various names would be humorous if not for the unconstitutionality of it all. You think you've exposed them and it's over and they've set up another, he said. Now this is from Ken, great piece, just a reminder, and further proof that these Zero Files go further than just the FBI. So yeah, this is literally how they handle their information, is in a manner pre-done in a way to be able to conceal information from you. So just great. All right, let's roll through the chat, and then we'll get into the final story. I think this one will be kind of long. See. All right, let's get into this. This is Robert Scalarva that shared this he's sharing the National Security Archive, but he's saying here the new MKUltra doc just dropped, courtesy of the NS Archive. The Artichoke Organization had been studying, he puts in quotes, the Artichoke Organization had been studying the use of certain facilities in the United States as testing grounds for new ideas, experiments, etc., particularly using criminals and the criminally insane. What he's showing here is a excerpt or a screenshot from this larger article, which is the top secret testimony of CIA's MKUltra chief. This is Gottlieb. So let's go through it. Let me see. Do we want to go to the archive, or which one does it matter? Top secret. Oh, it's the same article twice. It confused me. They put the same article. I was like, which of these is the right link? Let's go through this. We're going to go through the top secret testimony that just dropped. This is from Sidney Gottlieb, the head guy. So let's see if there's anything interesting in it. So this is National Security Archive, 40 years of Freedom of Information Action. I'm not quite sure exactly what this entity is, to be completely honest. So I don't know if it's like a government group of some sort, although it doesn't really sound like it or look like it to me. There's a top secret testimony of CIA's MKUltra chief 50 years later. So, all right, let's go through this. So the CIA experienced as many failures as successes in exploring the intelligence applications of LSD and other drugs, according to the October 1975 U.S. Senate testimony of the agent's former top chemist Sidney Gottlieb, the man most closely associated with the notorious MKUltra behavior control research projects. The results of everything told us that the money expended, the effort expended, the security risk involved, when you add everything up, it was probably not a high payoff program. The long secret transcripts of Gottlieb's testimony to the staff of the United States Select Committee to study governmental operations with respect to intelligence activities, the Church Committee, were published today by the National Security Archive 50 years after the historic intelligence oversight hearings, along with a selection of declassified CIA memos and other records concerning MKUltra and related projects that Gottlieb was asked about during his Senate deposition. The Church Committee transcripts are among the highlights of the digital National Security Archive collection. CIA and Behavioral Sciences, Mind Control Drug Experiments, and MKUltra, published in 2024 by ProQuest. Other documents are found among the recently declassified documents archived in the CIA's FOIA reading rooms. Among other things, the recently declassified transcripts from the closed-door hearings held on October 15th to 18th, 1975. Well, it sounds like it was like a 50-year thing if I had to guess. Shed new light on the bizarre and abusive research projects associated with Gottlieb and the agency's technical services staff, including the administration of mind-altering drugs in situations where, in Gottlieb's words, the unwitting and total lack of awareness on the part of somebody who was being interrogated that way might have been the key thing. At one point, Senate staffers asked Gottlieb about a document indicating that one interrogee had been secretly given a large dose of LSD that induced a severe classic paranoid reaction, so extreme that he was declared mentally ill by an equally unwitting psychiatrist and was thus discredited in the eyes of the group with which he had been working. Gottlieb said that it had been recognized this kind of thing might be a need that P1, LSD, might help with to make somebody behave erratically for the purposes of his colleagues losing faith in his ability to act responsibly. Other parts of the hearing focused on Gottlieb's involvement in CIA assassination plots, especially those targeting Cuban leader Fidel Castro, and support to the activities of other federal agencies through MH Chaos, the subject of the earlier Rockefeller Commission report. the committee also asked Gottlieb about his own experiences taking LSD, which he characterized as disorienting and otherworldly. Gottlieb said that LSD gave you proprioceptions, which he said meant perceiving feeling in yourself as opposed to feelings of things outside yourself, like seeing a door as opposed to feeling something inside your own body. Details about MKUltra and related programs first emerged in the mid-70s alongside revelations about CIA assassination plots and other misdeeds that were exposed in leaks to the media and in official investigations, most notably by the Church and Pike Committees and the Rockefeller Commission. In the late 1970s, the CIA's Victims Task Force reached out to presumed victims of the CIA experiments, some of whom later filed lawsuits after learning that the agency had secretly drugged them or members of their families. As author Stephen Kinzer wrote in Poisoner of Chief, his 2019 biography of Gottlieb, it was in 1975 that journalists writing about revelations from the Rockefeller Commission pierced Gottlieb's shroud of anonymity for the first time, after stories linked him to the death of Army scientist Frank Olson, drug tests on unwitting U.S. citizens, and the destruction of records related to these programs. Gottlieb was an obvious target, according to Kinzer. His chief bureaucratic ally, Richard Helms, who had been named CIA director in 1966, had been fired 2 years earlier. MKUltra was no longer well regarded. Perhaps worst of all, he was tainted by the fact that his technical services division had collaborated with the Watergate burglars. That's really interesting. So his MKUltra guys were working with the Watergate guys. Okay. But while declassified records and other evidence show that the U.S. research into human behavior control and efforts to operationalize these methods extended across multiple U.S. agencies and involved numerous officials, few, if any, were more essential to these programs than Gottlieb, who was involved in nearly every aspect of the program, including research, field tests, and the use of these methods in intelligence operations. The declassified evidence also shows that Gottlieb was a key bureaucratic player who signed off on hundreds of MKUltra sub-projects and who developed clandestine relationships with universities, prisons, hospitals, private laboratories, and private foundations that made it difficult to trace the programs back to the agency. The Church Committee faced considerable obstacles in reconstructing the story, especially since Gottlieb and CIA Director Richard Helms destroyed most of the original project records in 1973. On top of that, Gottlieb's attorney, Terry Lenzner, convinced the Senate to grant Gottlieb immunity in exchange for his testimony. But even with these protections, Gottlieb's memory was suspiciously fuzzy for a man who had only been retired for the CIA for a couple of years. Gottlieb remembered so little that one wonders whether he might have been subjected to one of the memory erasing techniques that the agency tried to develop. But the far simpler explanation is that even with congressional immunity, Gottlieb was concerned that his testimony on some subjects could expose him to civil lawsuits or worse down the road. Gottlieb and Lenzner said as much during the deposition. During discussion of the Olson case, Lenzner said, "Who has access to this transcript and whether a private party in a lawsuit could obtain Gottlieb's deposition through a subpoena." Committee staffer Elliot Maxwell said, but while the rules did not address the issue specifically, he did not think it was possible to obtain executive session testimony in a lawsuit. The Freedom of Information Act does not affect it, asked Gottlieb. It does not apply, Maxwell replied. Maxwell was wrong on both counts. The transcripts were first declassified and given to the estate of MKUltra victim Stanley Glickman in 1995 during the course of a lawsuit against the CIA, Helms, and Gottlieb that was not made available to the general public. The declassified transcripts were finally made public only recently in response to a 2017 FOIA request. In their questioning of Gottlieb, Church Committee staffers relied heavily on CIA records obtained by the committee, including two key reports by the CIA Inspector General that took a critical look at programs linked to Gottlieb, a 1963 review of MKUltra and related activities, and a 1967 investigation of the agency's involvement in assassination plots against foreign leaders. The transcripts of Gottlieb's testimony before the members of the Church Committee earlier that month, from October 7 to 9, 1975, have not yet been declassified, but are referenced throughout the committee's interim reports as alleged assassination plots involving foreign leaders. Published in November 1975, Gottlieb appeared at his first of secret hearings using the pseudonym Joseph Schneider and was asked about his role in the assassination plots against Cuban leader Fidel Castro and Congo Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba. That was the name I was trying to think of the other day. I was talking about somebody the CIA had killed. The Congo Prime Minister. I was thinking of South America for some reason, but that's obviously Africa. Anyways, that's who I was thinking about the other day. Artichoke and P1 investigations. The conversation on the first day of Gottlieb's testimony to Senate staff focused on the early days of CIA drug testing, his participation in interrogations where drugs were administered, and his own experiences as both writing and unwitting subject of LSD and other drug tests. Gottlieb said the first 6 months to a year he was working in the CIA were confusing indeed about what my job was and what was going on. He recalled some artichoke activity, which he said referred to barbiturates administered in the truth serum, quote-unquote, mode in a sort of medical setting, and mentioned related operations that were planned for and I think finally carried out in Europe. Though he claimed to never have been present at an artichoke interrogation, Gottlieb said they involved a substance called nembutal, a powerful barbiturate, along with a series of what he called hypnotics or sleep-inducing materials to catch a person on his way down to the sleep stage and hope that he would be more open and vulnerable to interrogation. The use of a medical setting was not necessarily done to protect the subject of the interrogation, according to Gottlieb, but was more like an elaborate ruse to make it so the man was aware in some way of some reason for his being in this medical setting, with physicians around him getting injections. The medical setting, even if artificial, was what differentiated the artichoke interrogations from those Gottlieb admitted to witnessing himself, mainly during the 1950s. I do gotta say, it's wild. The artichoke interrogations sound like almost exactly what like UFO abductions sound like, but like how people describe them. These are referred to throughout the transcript as P1 and A2 interrogations and are sometimes called MK Delta interrogations, which, by the way, for the patrons are aware, I did just recently do my first of my Program to Kill series, where I'm taking doing shorter, maybe 20 to 40 minute episodes or so, just kind of generally covering each little story in there. And I covered the Leonard Lake Charles Nigg duo, and they were literally taking women and essentially holding them down and I guess you could say interrogate or brainwash. And I don't know if they were giving them drugs, but it is this sort of thing that we're talking about here is what comes to mind. All right, where was I at with that? Yeah, Gottlieb told the committee that TSS wanted something that was more covert than the artichoke technique, something that did not require the subject to believe they were under medical care. That was the general idea, or get as close to that kind of capability as we could. Investigators also probed Gottlieb for information on how the drugs were tested and the distinction between testing when they were trying to understand the properties of the substance and operational use in support of an approved operation of the CIA, which was the focus of MK Delta. But Gottlieb said there was also such a thing as operational testing, where the two get combined. On one hand, it is being potentially used to an approved operation of the agency, and the other is providing what I would call research information in a testing sense. The committee staff also asked Gottlieb, so what they just said there is not only are they going to actually be doing this operationally, they're going to be doing tests. So that's kind of why I alluded to oh wow, isn't it crazy? This reminds us a lot of alien abductions. And so I'm I don't know, is it really that crazy that perhaps some of these stories came from people getting abducted by the CIA and given drugs to make them think they're in some sort of weird in-between state of consciousness to where they're unaware of what's going on and being fucked with and extracting information from them just for the sake of testing. And it would seem just odd and bizarre to someone this just happened to. And it totally makes sense. You'd be like, what the fuck, aliens or something. Anyways. All right, investigators also probed Gottlieb on information on the drugs were tested. And, did I already read that one? I think I already read that paragraph. The committee staff also asked Gottlieb about the extent of CIA-sponsored drug testing in prisons and psychiatric facilities in the U.S. Asked on the first day of testimony if he recalled artichoke operations either in prisons, mental hospitals, or other facilities that might hold either criminals or the criminally insane. Gottlieb replied, I don't remember anything like that. However, the next day, Gottlieb said he did remember that TSS conducted general research at hospitals with psychochemicals. although he took issue with the word prison to describe what he said were treatment facilities run by the Public Health Service for people with criminal background. Gottlieb was similarly evasive in response to questions about whether experiments were done at universities, finally settling on this statement: there was some of the work involving such testing that went on at hospitals that were affiliated with universities and might have used university students as a source of volunteers. Asked again about these kinds of projects on the final day of testimony, Gottlieb admitted that the CIA had an extensive research program in regard to human experimentation on psychochemicals under MKUltra, adding that a lot of these things were done in hospitals and mental institutions. And when you say hospitalization, the people were already hospitalized, which these are horrifying things to think of. They were just taking people in hospitals and mental institutions and running tests on them. Senate staffers referred Gottlieb to memos from Artichoke Committee meetings in 1953, in which CIA officials discussed the need for a large number of bodies to be used for research and experimentation in regard to psychochemicals, the problem of the returning POWs from Korea, and the interrogation of particular POWs at Valley Forge and proposals to interrogate them. In most cases, Gottlieb failed to remember details about specific meetings and operations, but Gottlieb did recall working with the Army in certain MK Delta interrogations. While the precise location of the operation is redacted from the transcript, the time frame coincides with a reported trip by Gottlieb to East Asia in 1953 to assist with prisoner interrogations. He told the committee he participated in 6 to 12 interrogations. To the best of my recollection, I was approached by an individual from the headquarters desk involved. By the way, that was probably, if I recall correctly, it was the 50s Vietnam? Is it Vietnam War? What was the range for that? Was that 50? No, it's 55 to 75. Okay, so it hadn't quite started yet, because I was about to say, like, is he talking about assisting with Operation Phoenix interrogations? No, I don't think so. Anyways, to the best of my recollection, I was approached by an individual with a headquarters desk involved that the approval of such a trip and such a series of technically assisted interrogations, and by technically assisted, I mean using LSD, consisted of approval by the branch chief, the division chief, and the DDP. I discussed with, deleted, the nature of the assistance that LSD could provide in the interrogation, and there was some cables exchanged, I believe, although I can't remember that in detail now, and I can't recall the specific arrangement, whether I was looking at it through a mirror or anything like that. I know that I saw the interrogations. Committee staffers direct Gottlieb to another memo about a P1 interrogation, indicating that the officer to give the P1 was familiar with its use and had worked with the technique in Europe. While claiming to not remember the specific case, Gottlieb admitted that he himself fit this description. On the third day of testimony, Gottlieb was asked about a little-known program called QK Hilltop, about which he offers few details, although it has since been learned that it was a program through which the CIA sought to study what they believed were highly advanced brainwashing techniques in use by Communist China. One of the church committee staffers described a record they had seen about a hilltop interrogation in which an unwitting subject had been given a large dose of LSD in a scheme to have them declared mentally ill by a physician who was also unaware of the drug that had been administered. Jesus Christ. So they were doing these hilltop interrogations. The cable I referred to indicated that 200 units of P1, which keep in mind when they say that they're meaning LSD, were given to subject number 1, and this precipitated severe classic paranoid reaction. The subject believed that light bulbs were emitting hot and cold rays to produce scientific death, and told the guard that someone was trying to read his mind and went into a schizophrenic reaction. The doctor diagnosed the subject as mentally ill, according to the document, and it was apparently done in order to have the subject labeled as mentally ill. For keeping that in mind whenever we talk about celebrities and losing their mind, and Kanye's crazy. Like, okay, maybe he was. Maybe he was tripping balls when he came up with Heil Hitler, and it just backfired on their ass. But it is interesting. This would allow them to be described in the eyes of the group, which he had been working. Gottlieb did not remember that particular case, but said it had been recognized. This kind of thing might be a need that P1 might help with to make somebody behave erratically for the purpose of his colleagues losing faith in his ability to act responsibly. Senate investigators later asked Gottlieb about a separate MK Delta interrogation that was reported as a success because it induced a paranoid reaction in the presence of an unwitting psychiatrist, such that it was possible to have the subject committed to an institution at will, thereby denying to the deleted forever a loyal follower. Okay, so they're literally taking their enemies, labeling them crazy, and getting them committed to where they're gone. Gottlieb said that using LSD guaranteed that you were almost sure to get some peculiar behavior on the part of an individual, and to the extent that that was useful to an agency's operations, it is an effective use of P1. But Gottlieb said that his opinion about the usefulness of LSD had changed with time. There was a continuum, if I can call it that, on one end of which was, if not an expectation, the possibility of this material being something you administer to somebody who later, when he is asked questions, simply gives answers where he wouldn't before. That is one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum was that the material had no specific effect on interrogation, but what it did was to create a caricature of a person's normal personality so the skilled interrogator or psychologist can exploit the weaknesses that are now caricature. Gottlieb was also asked about drug tests on unwitting volunteers in the early 1960s, including U.S. military operations designated Derby Hat and Third Chance. While not recalling these specific operations, Gottlieb said that during the Vietnam War, the military was considering the use of LSD on a fairly large scale. And by fairly large scale, I'm talking about an interrogation sense, interrogating a number of prisoners, and that we were asked to come on that. And I forget what the occasion was, and I forget who was there, but I do remember there being there at least once with Mr. Fitzgerald when he was DDP, the Deputy Director for Plans. Gottlieb said that an agency had as many failures as successes with LSD. Asked why the committee did not see evidence of P1 interrogation cases that had been judged to be failures, Gottlieb suggested that the records of these operations in many cases reflected what the reporting officers wanted their bosses to hear. The reports of success have to be seen with a grain of salt. Not that people falsified anything, but that they were very close to the situation in their evaluation of how much the national interest was served by information that they got from their interrogation. The results of everything told us that the money expended, the effort expended, the security risk involved. When you add everything up, it probably was not, and I'm searching for the right expression here, was probably not a high payoff program. I do find it kind of funny because it is like, I think the point being made here kind of by this article is that they, kind of what we got out of the church committee was kind of like, oh, well, they thought all that MKUltra stuff was just crazy and it doesn't work and it's just kind of a waste of money. And it's kind of like, you're seeing here behind the scenes of like, okay, well, here's all this crazy information. Oh, we do this, we do that, we do that. While also still holding this line of like, it was not a high payoff program. Here's all the effective uses of it for our purposes of evil. And then go, I don't think we would ever use that. So yeah, you get the idea. Drug experiments at domestic safe houses. To further probe the subject of drug tests on unwitting subjects, the committee peppered Gottlieb with questions about CIA-supplied safe houses in New York City and San Francisco that were staffed by federal narcotics agent George White, an arrangement his boss Richard Helms described as using the Bureau of Narcotics as a cutout. Gottlieb said that cutout meant to remove the CIA by one or two steps from the activity itself. In December 1963 memo, later cited by committee staffers on day 4 of the testimony, Helms had called the project with White 8 years of close collaboration. Gottlieb described how they used the safe houses to conduct an array of experiments using drugs, hypnosis, and other techniques. We developed a liaison with the Bureau of Narcotics where we would share information on LSD or any other drugs. The mechanism for this was our funding of 2 safe houses at different times for the Bureau of Narcotics, which the Bureau would use for meeting informants and pursuing their own business, and which premises we would occasionally use for our own meetings. Gottlieb even suggested that he himself had taken LSD at one of the safe houses. As I remember it, some of the experiments we did on self-administration of drugs took place in one of these apartments. He later said again that he believed that some of these meetings where we self-administered LSD early on were held there. Gottlieb and White had a friendly relationship according to various accounts in White's diary entries, some of which were published in the DNSA collection. Record many instances of Gottlieb visiting the safe houses. Gottlieb told the committee he met with him 3 to 4 times a year. White had some prior experience with OSS, which is the forerunner of the CIA, during World War II, using marijuana-related material in interrogations. Okay. Gottlieb said, and that was during a period when I was looking for this kind of knowledgeable individual specialist in a operational sense. Gottlieb said he worked out an arrangement with White. He would get supplies of LSD from us and use them in circumstances that he felt were of relevancy to his work of dealing with informants and working in the general field of narcotics enforcement, and that we would be made privy, or at least in a general way, to the results and effectiveness of these activities, in return for which we would financially support the maintenance of these pads or safe houses with the Bureau of Narcotics, as I remember, badly needed for these operations, but had financial problems as to. Okay, so it sounds like they're basically what they were doing is they were allowing the Bureau of Narcotics, essentially kind of like an ATF type thing, use that area for drug stuff, to kind of for their drug operations. But they would also like kind of sounds like they were sort of pushing like, well, maybe sneak in some LSD here and there or whatever, and let us film or this or that. So it sounds like they were kind of multi-functionary. These buildings is kind of what they're getting at. So they're like the CIA financially supported it, and then they're letting this Bureau of Narcotics use it as well for their own purposes, and because they're doing operations as well. So you can kind of, yeah. The committee showed Gottlieb a memo from December 1953 on the status of the agency's LSD supply, noting that White had been provided with LSD by the CIA by then at the latest. The memo came as the agency scrambled to account for its LSD research and testing program after Frank Olson's death in late November. Other records, including White's diary entries, show that he had been experimenting with CIA-supplied LSD for nearly a year at that point. White first spoke to Gottlieb about the project in May 1952. While he did not get final clearance till the next year, his experiments dosing unwitting people with Gottlieb's LSD were already underway in January 1953 and months before the relationship was formalized in the summer of 1953. Gottlieb claimed to not remember much about how White reported back to him on the results of these drug experiments, but said that White was trying to use this material as close to the manner in which we at that time thought we might find some use of operationally, namely to see whether we could elicit more information from informants and other people we was dealing with. He later added that White's experiments were very useful operationally. It was practically the only information we had that was relevant to an operational situation or something near it. Gottlieb agreed with the committee that this was accepting the interrogations that were being performed overseas by the agency, presumably the P1 and A2 interrogations that they discussed at length previously. Asked again to reflect on the project with White, Gottlieb said, "I don't think this corner of the Ultra project was looked upon as a scientific experiment. It was more of an operational, simulated operational test, and I don't think, as I remember it, that we were hoping to get what I could call scientific information from it." Okay, what do we have left? I'm debating maybe. Let's cut it off here. There are a few more sub pieces that I'm gonna dig into on my own time. Fuck it. Let's go long. Let's just finish this whole damn thing. It sounds like there's some interesting, juicy stuff. All right, MKUltra defensive pharmacology and the death of Frank Olson. Having admitted to taking LSD from 6 to 12 times, the committee asked Gottlieb if he would describe its effect. Here's what he said. "I would say that by and large, it was an effect that I would call disorienting. Otherworldly, gave you proprioceptions, which means perceiving feeling in yourself as opposed to feeling of things outside yourself, like seeing a door as opposed to feeling in something inside your body." Gottlieb said that they did administer the drug to CIA employees for defensive pharmacology purposes to familiarize them with the feeling of LSD in case it were ever surreptitiously given to them. Gottlieb remembered it as a program where they approached people who were going to serve in the Soviet Union or in places that would be exposed. And so the agency officials were told, "We have this capability of exposing you to this drug because you might someday be covertly attacked by it." Underscoring this point, one Senate staffer then read to Gottlieb a portion of the January 1952 memo from the chief of the CIA medical staff, who cited ample evidence and reports of innumerable interrogations that the communists are utilizing drugs, physical duress, electrical shock, and possibly hypnosis against their enemies. "It was difficult not to keep from becoming rabid about our apparent laxity," the memo stated. "We were forced by this mountain of evidence to assume a more aggressive role in the development of these techniques, but must be cautious to maintain strict, inviolable control because of the havoc that could be wrought by such techniques in unscrupulous hands. Referring to paragraph 22 of a July 15th, 1953 memo, one Senate staffer said it was the first reference that I have seen to a program under carefully controlled conditions of testing techniques and chemicals on CIA officers. The paragraph is almost completely redacted in the declassified version of the memo, so it's not clear what they were referring to, but Gottlieb said he did not think these were the same as a self-administered test taken among TSS staff and others that he had previously mentioned. The most controversial of these self-administered tests took place in November 1953, when Gottlieb organized a retreat for a group of scientists and other officials from the CIA and their partners at the Army's Special Operations Division at Deep Creek Lake in western Maryland. The nature of the relationship between the two programs was especially important in light of the revelation that an Army scientist who worked in the project, Frank Olson, died mysteriously just 10 days after participating in the Deep Creek Lake experiment. Gottlieb said that the CIA's relationship with SOD had an offensive connotation in the sense of preparing for a contingency either in a hot war or some special operation that was levied on TSD, and also as a defensive study on the potential of U.S. individuals or installations being covertly attacked by BW materials abroad. One Senate staffer reminded Gottlieb that he had said in his opening statement that either sometime during the summer or fall, you met with individuals from SOD, and that at that meeting it was discussed whether there should be a covert application of LSD to determine what the effects would be on a meeting of someone adding LSD to a drink or whatever. Gottlieb strongly implied that Olson attended this meeting and thus would have known that he was among a group of CIA and SOD officials who would agree at some unspecified time to be given the drug without their knowledge. While he claimed to not remember details, Gottlieb said that unwitting administration was talked about as being the only way to determine what effect it would have in real operations. Unwitting in this sense obviously meant that they knew they might get it sometime, he said. Gottlieb said he recalled a mix of individuals being there, and my recollection, including Mr. Olson, is that they might not have been completely the ones that were at the Western Maryland meeting, but roughly the same mix. Olson is one of just a few people that he specifically remembers attending the earlier meeting. I had the impression, Gottlieb said, that we had the agreement of that group at some time in the future to participate in that kind of experiment. There was no formal agreement. There certainly wasn't anything in writing. So it's just something. So he's saying it's not even in writing, just something we said. Okay. One committee staffer wondered why, if the object of the experiment was to determine the effect of LSD on the unwitting, they chose to administer the drug to a group of people who knew that at some point they would be given LSD, and secondly, a group of people, a number of whom had previously taken LSD. Gottlieb said they hoped they would not remember the agreement and their reactions would be innocent ones for the ones who had taken LSD before. There was an ancillary gain, whether they recognized it or not. Regarding how the LSD was given to the attendees at Deep Creek Lake, Gottlieb remembered that it was administered in Cointreau and that Dr. Lashbrook had prepared that earlier and that had about 60 gammas, micrograms, per whatever was considered a drink-size amount of Cointreau. Asked if he had been given LSD that night, Gottlieb said, "As I remember it, yes, but my remembrance is hazy on this point." Asked again whether he had taken LSD that night, Gottlieb said, my recollection is that I did." Asked if medical observers were present, Gottlieb said they were not. 10 years later, in 1963, the CIA's Inspector General, John Ehrman, led a critical review of the CIA of the MKULTRA program and related projects, finding, among other things, that some of the testing of substances under simulated operational conditions was judged to involve excessive risk to the agency. The primary sticking point among top officials responsible for continuing the reformulated program under what would be its new designation, MK Search, was whether the agency should continue the testing of certain drugs on unwitting U.S. citizens. Could the agency continue to test substances like LSD on Americans who were unaware that they were being drugged? The issue ultimately landed on the desk of CIA Director John McCone, a Kennedy appointee whose skepticism about the utility of the program had prompted the Inspector General's review. At a November 1963 meeting recorded in a memo by Ehrman, Gottlieb and another official argued for the continuation of unwitting testing, using as a principal point that controlled testing cannot be depended upon for accurate results. Ehrman and CIA Deputy Director Marshall Carter disagreed. There was also discussion about the possibility of unwitting tests on foreign nationals. The issue was ultimately put before McCone, who, according to Gottlieb and others, never acted on it. A very clear recollection is he's being needled on the point several times. Be reminded that he didn't make a decision or hadn't made a decision, Gottlieb told the committee. All right, on to MH Chaos. Another top concern of the church committee was any evidence of CIA involvement with operations outside or inside the United States. As archive analyst Jeff Richardson wrote in 2001, TSD had become an object of concern in this period because of its technical assistance to the efforts of Howard Hunt and G. Gordon Liddy to burgle the office of Daniel Ellsberg, psychiatrist, as well to dig up derogatory information on Edward Kennedy. As part of an overall examination of the possible CIA activities outside his charter, known as the Family Jewels, Schlesinger asked agency components to prepare relevant reports. Senate investigators grilled the former TSD head about support that his staff had provided the FBI, among other federal agencies, for domestic operations. Gottlieb denied any knowledge or surveillance operations targeting the Chilean embassy, activist Jane Fonda, and other U.S. and former U.S. Attorney General Ramsey Clark, among others, but admitted that TSD did have an ongoing cooperative effort on the technical side with the FBI, where we would talk to them about the devices we had and where they would, as I remember it, put devices or borrow devices we had when they thought it would help them. Gottlieb said he could see lots of places where one of those could have been used on whatever they wanted to, but denied knowing anything about who or what the targets were. Senate staff member Burt Wides asked Gottlieb about a now famous memo he prepared in response to Schlesinger's request for Family Jewels information. Did Gottlieb recall preparing a memorandum to the Deputy Director for Science and Technology in May of 1973 in the course of responding to Director Schlesinger's request for a summary of possible questionable activities? Gottlieb's response, "I don't think I was the head of TSD then," was at least partially right. TSD was abolished in May 1973, and Gottlieb was set to retire the next month. The document they were asking about, as he surely knew, was essentially his exit memo, a laundry list of secret services TSD had provided in support of his domestic operations of other U.S. agencies. Months earlier, Gottlieb and his longtime protector at the agency, Director of Central Intelligence Richard Helms, had destroyed the vast majority of agency records on the MKUltra program just days before Helms himself was fired for refusing to help the Nixon White House concoct a cover story for the Watergate break-in. For whatever reason, Gottlieb's reply to Wide's question but the May 8, 1973 memo prompted Church Committee investigators to take the rest of the discussion off the record. But Gottlieb faced additional questions about the memo a few days later, near the end of his fourth day of testimony. What did Gottlieb make of a separate memo directed to the new DCI, William Colby, indicating that his boss, the Deputy Director for Science and Technology, Carl Duckett, was very uncomfortable with what Sid Gottlieb is reporting in the May 8th memo and thinks the Director of the CIA will be ill-advised to say he is acquainted with this program. Gottlieb told the committee that he didn't understand what Duckett says when he says Colby will be ill-advised to say he was acquainted with this program, adding, "I would only interpret that by saying that Carl Duckett was trying in some way to protect the director here. I was simply trying to come up with the information that Duckett apparently asked me for." All right, we're on to the last section covering the new information that was covered. I know I did warn you guys it was going to be long and academic and a lot of reading today, but this is interesting information and important information that if you're trying to grapple with understanding all of this, you kind of got to figure some of this stuff out. This is big stuff. It may be a little bit boring, a little bit tedious, but you got to find the interesting stuff. You got to trudge through the tedious stuff. But the Health Alteration Committee. Church Committee investigators spent considerable time asking Gottlieb about his role in CIA assassination plots, especially those targeting Cuban leader Fidel Castro, which were the subject of May 23, 1967 report by the CIA's Inspector General that was based in part on interviews with Gottlieb and others. Investigators cited the report numerous times in probing Gottlieb for information about his involvement in the so-called Health Alteration Committee and plots involving poisoned cigars, a wetsuit tainted with botulinum toxin, exploding seashells, and a depilatory made from radioactive thallium salts. A particular interest of the Church Committee was a scheme to release an aerosolized form of LSD inside a radio station when Castro was inside broadcasting. Regarding poisoned cigars, Gottlieb claimed to remember little beyond having a recollection of the events having happened that cigars were prepared for use against the Cuban leader. Gottlieb admitted that he talked to Richard Bissell, the CIA official in charge of covert operations, about techniques that, as one church committee staffer said, could either produce death or disorientation of a foreign leader. Asked again if they had discussed various technical means of killing a foreign leader, Gottlieb said yes, but did not remember the specific topic cigars nor any other methods or devices coming up in those discussions. He said he remembered hearing about plots to poison cigars with botulinum, deadly toxin, but that he himself certainly didn't have that mission. He agreed with the characterization by one committee staff member that it was a scheme calculated to produce the death of whoever smoked these cigars, or even someone who merely put those cigars in his mouth. Asked whether he knew about that the cigars were being prepared for Castro, Gottlieb said, "I think so." Much time is spent on the fourth and final day of Gottlieb's testimony trying to pinpoint the precise date of handwritten notes taken by CIA covert operations specialist William Harvey, who was at the center of many of the plots against Castro, about a meeting where he claimed to have discussed assassination plots with Gottlieb. While Gottlieb was unable to remember and to recall anything about the meeting, committee investigators tell him they believe the meeting took place on January 25th, 1961, just 5 days after the inauguration of President Kennedy, and included cryptic references to exclusive executive action and what they suggest are references to Fidel Castro, Raul Castro, and Che Guevara. Asked, what can you tell us about the source of authority for discussing assassination capabilities or establishing an assassination capability project? Gottlieb says, "My impression now is that Bissell asked to create such a capability, or discussed with him creating such a capability, but that he had no knowledge whether Bissell was acting with or without authority from either the DCI or the president." Asked whether he had discussions with unnamed individuals for the purpose of developing materials that could be supplied to an operator for an assassination attempt, Gottlieb said, "I would have to have done that. I don't remember specific conversations, but in the course of implementing the Camp Dietrich work, we would have had to have done that." All right. Yeah, I know there was a lot today, guys, but I do think this is important information for us to dredge through. I guess I'll try to scroll through the chat real quick. I didn't really hang out with the chat much today, but I figured let's just scroll through, see if anything interesting in here, maybe say some highs, and then we'll get out of here. But yeah, it's a lot. See everyone talking about Halloween in there. Hey, what's up, Kothar? Says good afternoon. By the way, just a few minutes ago, when the premiere went live of me and Toad's new live reading series, Anatomy of the State. For those who are interested in it, highly recommend it. First episode's pretty short, so you could probably knock that out pretty easily. What's up, Taffy Rumble? Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. Let me see. Scroll through, see if there's anything else. All right, we're about 30 minutes back. Oh, hey, Marty McFly. Good to see you in here. Good morning. Gottlieb sounds Chinese. Yeah, everyone, all the... Hey, what's up, Marnamat? Good to see you. Good morning. Everyone make sure to hit that like button. I didn't interact with you guys as much. It's probably not going to be as liked of a show, and that I didn't sit there and go, hit the like button, interact with you guys. We were doing a little bit more, like I said, the academic legwork today, so help me out. Hit that like button. Let me see. QK Hilltop. That's a new one, says Tony Chan. I feel like I've heard that one somewhere, but yeah, it is a... yeah, it's worthwhile going through, I think. Gerald says, I was talking about Sidney Gottlieb's satanic goat farm. I didn't know about Willie Picton. I didn't know you guys were talking about pig farm. I just had to read that. I'm like, I saw Sidney Gottlieb's satanic goat farm. All right, you guys are having fun in the chat. I can tell. By the way, on the outro today, I think it will be a little bit longer. Jose, say good morning to Bobo before everyone listens to replay. Oh, good morning, Bobo. Did I not already say good morning to Bobo? Or maybe he's not been in the chat. That's what you guys are saying. Okay. All right. All right, let's play the... I'm going to go ahead and play one of the first outros. I'll play it before plugs because I have a second one after that, more the funny one. We'll call this kind of the first outro, then I'll give plugs. And kind of give me time to go through chat anyways. It's a little bit on the longer side. But I figured for Halloween, I guess not even an outro, a kind of a final message for the main show, kind of for Halloween. What I would say is with this, if I can ever get it the fuck up, what the hell? Here we go. Sorry. With this, I know I warned you guys yesterday a little bit about, kind of the hazarded gooning and maybe how, and no judgment, I'm a man, I know we all have these problems, especially men. It's pretty ubiquitous, as I've said before. It's kind of these things I'm working on as well. So working on the gooning, but another side thing, the liminal spaces. Be careful and definitely don't be gooning in liminal spaces. So what are liminal spaces? Well, this fella right here is going to tell you all about it.
So you want to know the real scariest place in the whole United States? It's just Interstate 40. I-40 has more missing people and violent crimes than any other stretch of road in the entire world. If you're unfamiliar with I-40, it goes all the way from the United States East Coast to West Coast. Right now, the FBI is looking for more than 100 truck drivers that are serial killers. That is an insane number, and the most common route they're believing to be used is I-40. More than 100 serial killers on I-40. Think about the next time I live in Seminole. When you get on that little stretch of interstate, think about you're on the same road as serial killers. Like, not maybe, you are definitely on the same road as serial killers. You just might not be in the point of the road that they're on yet. More than 100 active truck driver serial killers the FBI is looking for along the I-40 stretch. And it's a truly horrifying thing when you think about the stats behind it. People go missing every single day on I-40 and are never seen again. It's one giant liminal space, and liminal spaces are just freaky to begin with. If you don't know what a liminal space is, it's an area that no one truly belongs there, such as like hotels. People come and go, but no one ever actually lives there. Gas stations are massive liminal spaces. There's just tons of traffic through there. And the reason why those spaces are so dangerous is because your brain doesn't know what to watch out for, because everything is unknown. You don't know if that guy's just walking to the car next to you or if he's walking directly at you and he's about to grab you. There could be a guy in a chicken costume by the road dancing around. You don't know if he's there for a promotion for the gas station or if he's just insane. So your brain kind of goes into this mode where it thinks everything is normal, everything is okay. And then that's when you kind of drop your guard a little bit. And people get abducted all the time. I mean, just this past week in Memphis, which I-40 runs right through Memphis, they found 45 missing children that belong to different places all over the United States. I-40 serves as a massive hub. Oklahoma was the first state to recognize this back in 2004. They launched this big initiative for safe travels and camera systems on I-40. So as soon as you get into Oklahoma, there's a camera that takes your picture. When you're going the other way over Arkansas, it does not do that. So every vehicle coming in Oklahoma on I-40 gets a snapshot taken of it for that reason, because it is such a big hub of missing people. If y'all didn't know, I-40 runs through Shawnee, and I live right down the road from Shawnee. The Shawnee Walmart has more abductions than most any other Walmart because it's right next to I-40. It's right next to the interstate. Just in the past year alone, there was a couple abductions there and several attempted abductions. You might have heard about the lady who choked a guy out that tried to take her kid. Kudos to that lady. That was awesome. She literally choked him out and he passed out. A woman choked this dude out in the Walmart parking lot. It was great. Apparently he tried to take her kid out of the buggy. But that's a dangerous place. Shawnee Walmart. I will not let my wife go to Shawnee Walmart by herself. It is not going to happen. Especially if she's got our daughter with us. Not happening. But just kind of raising the awareness out there, guys. If you're on I-40 traveling, especially like I am right now, if you didn't notice, I'm sitting at a Love's gas station on I-40. You can just look around and see that there's some people that don't belong there. There's too many people when you're looking. They're looking at everything but doing the tasks that you should do at a gas station. Those are the people you should be looking out for. I probably look like one of those people right now with my phone out recording, looking side to side. So, watch out for people doing that shit. Have a good night, have a safe travel, and stay spooky.
All right, guys. Fit signing out. I recommend reduce your gooning. And also, don't be careful in liminal spaces, and definitely be super duper careful gooning in liminal spaces. With that, guys, if you want to support the show, leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. All of those steps go a long way to help this show. You can find this show on YouTube, Rumble, all the major audio podcatchers, really all the audio podcatchers. You can find me on Twitter at TowerGangJose. And if you want to support the show in the best way you can, that's with money over at patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. You can go to the QR code right up there if you prefer doing that. And the low level of $2, that's the lowest level. You get access to early episodes. I usually do about 1 to 2 of those a week. Keep about 4 behind the paywall at any given time. You get access to the Telegram. You get access to the RSS ad-free RSS feed. You get access to pre-show, post-show, and video calls from me and Austin's weekly live call-in show, Already Dead. And I give a big shout out to my sponsors, which is the highest level of my Patreon every week or every episode. Is a big thank you for everything they do. At my previous host on Tower Gang, at Learn to Toad, also at AbragateD's, at ZLVRCK, at _InvitZeal, Tim Tuttle, at John Klebo, big fan of the show, Torn May, at Wayne Tackless, 1-800-CARS for Kids, No Free Lunch, Jack, and Mark Vestibule. Appreciate you guys for your support. Enjoy this outro, and also beware the EBT people. Tomorrow, it goes down. The fucking EBT done. So be careful. Beware those liminal spaces. Reduce your gooning and watch out for EBD people.
We are live outside the Walmart on South Oaks. They cut the food stamps this morning. It's looking like Black Friday in reverse out here.
Real with you, I get over $2,500 a month in stamps. I sell them $2,000 worth for about $1,200 to $1,500 cash.
Y'all knew winter was coming and you still stopped taking EBT? I want my food stamps. I'm hungry. You hear me? I'm starving. I'm going to eat somebody if I don't get them.
What are you going to do now without the food stamps?
It's devastating. I was getting $3,000 a month for my kids. Then I flipped it and got $1,500 cash. That paid for my lip wax, my butt wax, my...
Oh, man, what you can? Hurry up, hurry up. Y'all listen here. No EBT. We going to eat for free. Move out my way.
Folks out there crying because their EBT got clipped. Look at us, though. Man, we eating like kings in here. Honey buns for breakfast, ramen deluxe for dinner.
Chips, sauce.
Why my food stamps ain't go through?
Because the government on break, baby. They chilling while we starving. Now move. I'm trying to see if my card still got hope.
Wait, so the machine's really down? I just came for the crab legs.
They say EBT ain't working at all. Cash or credit only. That don't make no sense.